So that's it for rods and reels I'm gonna go through. Hopefully those are some budget options that were helpful. Now I'm gonna transition into some of the lures and baits that I like to use out on the water.
Oh, hey.
Alrighty, this is my little fly pack, the Callan, I don't even know what it's called, fly pack from Cabela's. It was really pretty cheap. I'm not gonna go through flies just because that's so depending on the hatch. I really like subsurface, nymphs, woolly buggers, leeches. I can't really say I have like one fly that's like my go-to because it really just depends. My fly tying stuff. I've just got my vise and materials and some hooks and a tackle box. All right, moving on. All right, so let's start. I have my tackle kind of broken up by, I call it species group. I have like a trout collection, a bass collection, a bait fishing collection, you know, catfish, carp, and that's where I have my gear for when I'm fishing for stingrays and stuff. And then I've got like an ultralight perch panfish kind of section. So as far as favorite stuff to use with the perch, panfish, smaller fish, a lot of the time I just use a pre-snelled hook on a snap swivel with a night crawler under a bobber. That is a great way to catch bluegill. If I'm trying to go catfishing and I just need bait, or if I just feel like just having a good time and just catching a ton of fish, then you really can't go wrong. I like these little foam weighted bobbers. They're cheap, they're really visible, and because they're weighted, it kind of helps with the cast because usually you don't really have that much other tackle on. So that's usually what I do if I'm just wanting to just catch a bunch of fish. Little spinners, I think work pretty good. Cast masters are awesome. These little like curly tail grubs, I really like the white, and this is like a 16th ounce or a 1/32 ounce jig head. Little tiny guys, but I just felt like the tiny presentation. I catch bass, bluegill, perch on these, and they do really well. And then I have a few marabou jigs, which I'll come back to in the trout portion. But marabou jigs I think are really, really awesome. All right, catfish box. I've got some big weights. I call it my catfish box, my bait fishing box. Some big weights. I've got 3-ounce weights, 2-ounce weights, and then a bunch of different split shot of various sizes if I need to tweak things. These hooks, these bait holder hooks, this is what I'm using when I'm going catfishing for chicken livers or doe of some kind, and I'm having a hard time keeping the bait on. These have proven to be really, really effective. These little bells that I use, if you've watched my like stingray video and then the upcoming catfish videos, these just clip right onto the tip of your rod, so I can cast out, clip this on, then I can just, you know, chill on my phone or go walk around and explore, take some B-roll, and then when the dinner bell starts ringing, then I can come sprinting up and grab my rod, set the hook, and yeah, so it's really sweet. I use all sizes of gamakatsu hooks. I usually use circle hooks for when I'm bait fishing. Carp, I'll use like a J hook, but just because they have to be so small. And yeah, so that's for the bass fishing and the trout fishing where there's so much stuff and I could spend hours talking about all the things that I use. Let me preface it by saying, obviously it's gonna matter where you're fishing and the conditions, right? Like some of these things, especially for bass, trout I feel like are pretty consistent where I can throw the same 3 things anywhere all the time and pretty much I'm pretty confident that I'm gonna be able to catch the fish. Bass, obviously it changes a lot. That's what I'm learning being in Arizona. The weather, the time of year, the water temperature, just how much pressure they're under. Tons of things play into bass fishing, but I'll just show you just a few of the things that I found to work out pretty good. Number 1 is this Whopper Plopper in the bone color. This thing is freaking awesome. I had a day last year where it was raining on the river and I fished this for like 2 hours and had like, I don't even know how many, tons of blow-ups. I caught tons of largemouth. Nothing huge. That portion of the river is pretty heavily fished, but it is by far the most successful day I've had on the river, throwing the Whopper Plopper. You see the water blow up and you hear the water explode when someone from underneath tries to grab it. So that's a really fun one to use. Square bill crankbait, bouncing this along rocks. That's how I've caught most of my fish. A jerk bait. And then after that, this is where I have all my soft plastics. It's called a bait binder. You open it up, I've got a pocket for terminal tackle where I've got, you know, hooks and jigs and weights. The Texas rig with like a craw pattern. This right here, the Kraken craw and the Bandito bug, both made by Guggen. And then robo worms on a drop shot are becoming my favorite way to fish for bass. Like I've mentioned before, that ugly stick carbon that I have with a little mosquito hook and a drop shot weight and a robo worm. If I only can pick one thing when I'm going bass fishing any time of the year, that's what it's gonna be. If I only could pick 5 bass or bass, the Whopper Plopper, purple robo worm on a drop shot, a craw on a Texas rig like the Bandito bug, maybe a jerk bait, and the square bill crankbait. I'm sure there are gonna be people who disagree, and actually, I would love if you guys would put in the comments your go-to. Maybe if you only could have one lure or one bait for trout, for bass, leave that in the comments. The last category of lures that I'm gonna walk through is trout lures. Now this is where I feel like my opinion matters. If you guys only listen to me in one part of the video, this is the part of the video you should listen to me, because this is the part that I've figured out pretty well. This is the only trout stuff I bring with me. Little tiny tackle box, but I'm confident that if there are trout in the water I'm fishing, I will be able to catch them with something in this box. If I only could have 5 lures for trout fishing anywhere, any time of year, these are the 5 that I'm gonna pick. Number 1 is a 1/16 ounce black marabou jig. These things are freaking awesome. It's like kind of like a woolly bugger if you don't want to be fly fishing. If you want to have the spinning setup, you can cast these and it kind of is like a woolly bugger. Last summer I went after trying to catch some big tiger trout because I hadn't caught a big one before, and this was one of the tickets. This is how I caught the prettiest one. I'll throw, you know, a little clip of him right here, but like look at that fish, freaking gorgeous. Anyways, you guys will have to check out that video. But black marabou jig, caught that guy. Moving on, these guys, the Rapala ultralight minnow in the black and chrome, or the black and gold. I've caught stuff on too, but this one particularly, the black and gold, this sucker is awesome for fishing the river. This is, I caught a lot of big brown trout in Idaho on this lure. It's got a nice rattle to it. It has a really interesting scoop. It kind of comes down and then flattens out. The movement's really erratic, but big predatory fish, you know, big brown trout that are looking for bait fish, smoke this thing. Third bait, third lure, and this is my ultimate go-to for trout fishing. If you guys have been watching the channel for the last, you know, for a couple years now, you already know what I'm gonna say. The 1/4 ounce spoon. A 1/4 ounce spoon, it's so simple. Like, it's literally like one of the easiest lures you can fish with. You tie it on, you chuck it out with nothing else, out as far as you can, you let it sink, count down however many seconds for however many feet approximately you want it to sink, and then you reel it in. Like, so easy, but I have caught such awesome fish. My biggest rainbow, my biggest brown, my biggest hybrid, my biggest cutthroat. This is my bread and butter. Fourth one is going to be this right here. A trout magnet. These suckers are tiny. These are a really good way to get some finicky fish to bite, especially where they're pressured a lot. Most of the time when I was fishing in Idaho, I was fishing, you know, a big river where there's thousands of trout. They're wild, and so the spoon or the countdown work a little better, but these little trout magnets are really cool. They come in various colors. You know, I've got some chartreuse, some pink. I like white as a color. I think it's really good. The last lure that I would use is, here, I'll show this one right here. Panther Martin inline spinner. They work for generations. Again, really easy. You chuck it out, cast it as far as you can, let it sink a couple seconds, and then just reel in slow and wait for trout to bite. So those are my top 5 trout lures. 16th ounce marabou jig, a Rapala ultralight minnow, 1/4 ounce spoon, that's my big one. Trout magnet, Panther Martin or other inline spinner. Those are my 5 go-to for trout. If you're trying to catch trout, use one of those 5, or fly fish. I won't talk about fly fishing now, but I think fly fishing or tenkara fishing are really fun ways to fish for trout. Yeah, so thanks for tuning in to this section. Check out the channel, there's lots of really cool stuff. Now go catch some fish. Peace.